Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. We're honored that you've chosen to spend your lunch hour with us today. My name is Amy Wilhelm. I'm the Member Education Specialist here at Fox Communities Credit Union. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our very first Lunch Money webinar, where we deliver fresh financial information straight to you on your lunch hour. One of the things we're really passionate about here at Fox is teaching each other and our members, and frankly anyone else who might be interested in it, about current important financial topics so that we can be more in control of our finances and make better decisions for ourselves. Today we're very lucky to have our own fraud officer, Heidi Kiecker, here to talk with us about fraud and scams. Heidi has been with Fox for over 5 years now. She's very passionate about educating our members and the public on ways to protect themselves from fraud and scams. She is a regular on our monthly radio segment on Focus Fox Valley with Haley Tenpass. It's called Bring It To You Straight, which you can tune into on the second Monday of each month from noon to 1. And today, Heidi's going to give us a few tips on how to recognize a scam when one is presented to you. We do have everyone muted to cut down on background noise, but if you have any questions for Heidi, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box, and I'll relay them to her as she breaks throughout the presentation. So I'd like to thank you one more time for being here. Please go ahead, get comfortable, get out your sandwiches, and I'll turn it over to Heidi.
Yes, hello. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're very excited to kick off this webinar series, and I get the pleasure of kicking it off. We're talking about fraud prevention and education. So let's get started here. So really our objective for today is to help you identify red flags that can potentially prevent you and protect you from becoming the victim of a fraud or scam. So today we'll talk about what the difference is between fraud and a scam, what channels fraud can be committed through. We'll go through the signs that I'll say, quote unquote, it's a scam. We'll review different types of fraud schemes and real life examples. You'll learn what a money mule is, and finally how to avoid a scam. So we'll be going through a lot today. So let's dive in here. So let's start talking about what the definitions of fraud and a scam are, right? Because I feel like sometimes they get used interchangeably. So by definition, fraud is an intentionally deceptive action designed to provide the perpetrator with an unlawful gain or deny a right to a victim. And a scam is a dishonest scheme or trick used to cheat someone out of something. So again, you may be asking, what's the difference? Well, fraud may or may not involve money on all occasions, and scams always involve money. So in addition to financial fraud, right, which is kind of what we're going to be focusing on today, there are other common types of fraud. They might be mail fraud, driver's license fraud, voter fraud. And if we think of it this way, right, the scam or scheme is why the member falls victim. And in our case, since we're financial, the fraud is how the fraudulent transaction is conducted, which brings us to our next slide here. And I will just ask Amy if there are any current questions right now or comments.
Not so far.
Okay, sounds great. We'll continue. Please feel free to share them in the chat, and we can work through those as we go through the presentation. So really, channels fraud can occur through any way that a transaction can be made. It has the potential to be fraud. Now, I don't want to scare you, talking about that, but we'll continue to go through what the different types of channels are to help you better understand how they work, right? So, of course, scammers look for any way to deceive consumers into getting money in any form that they can. So I'll go through each channel. The first channel being checks, right, which can either mean checks that you write out of your checkbook or checks that you receive for deposit from someone. Wire or ACH transactions are types of electronic transfers from financial to financial, which can be person-to-person payments or bill payments. And then typically ACH, you probably would recognize most from receiving like direct deposits from employers or different government benefit programs such as Social Security or something like that. POS, which means point of sale, is the use of a debit or credit card. So like when you're at the grocery store or in retailer using your chip or swiping your card. And finally, online. So there are a couple ways that you can conduct transactions, with more of the popular ways being a mobile check deposit, which is where you deposit a check electronically, or bill payment, which is where you send out a check to pay a bill out of your checking account. Now that we understand where the fraud can be committed, we'll go through the 4 signs that it's a scam. So really, basically, there are 4 signs that it's a scam, and I'll go through each one in more detail. And as I go through them, I just want, to have you be aware that there are a few things to keep in mind. Scammers might not always use all 4 of these signs. You may not recognize them in the same order that I'm presenting them in. And all 4 of the signs could potentially be in one phone call, text, or email. So as you see on your screen, the 4 signs are: scammers pretend to be from an organization you know. Number 2, scammers say there's a problem or a prize. 3, scammers pressure you to act immediately. And 4, scammers tell you to pay in a specific way. So we'll get started with the first sign. So scammers pretend to be from an organization, right? So with this sign, scammers are always pretending to be something or someone they're not. They pretend to be from an organization you know and trust, because if it's someone you're familiar with, you may be more willing to give them your credit card or account information. I won't be able to name all the organizations scammers might use, but the government is a very easy target because nobody wants to feel like they are breaking the law or defying the government in any way. So scammers might use a real government agency, right? Like the Social Security Administration is, a well-known organization, or the IRS, Medicare. These are just all very well-known organizations with the government. Or scammers could make up a name that sounds official, right? And some pretend to be from a business like a utility company, a tech company, or online company, sometimes even a charity asking for donations. As I mentioned earlier, scammers are trying to get credit card or account information from you, so they're trying to create fear that you might owe an organization money. And sometimes scammers might take it a step further by using technology to change the phone number that appears on your caller ID. So even the name and number could match the organization they're claiming to be calling from, which makes it harder, right, for you to believe that it's not the real company. And to think, I guess, kind of take a step back. In today's world, you rarely, if ever, receive a phone call from a legitimate organization, right, like that you weren't expecting. Can you recall the last time you received a phone call from, like your electric company or any organization like that? They don't call. Probably not, right? Legitimate organizations would typically correspond with you based on how you told them to correspond with you, or what your preferred method of notification is. And typically, what do we say? Probably mail, email, maybe text message. So the point of this first sign is to gain your trust by using organizations you're familiar with and to get you to buy into what they're asking of you. And like I said, you always have to think, am I expecting a call from this company? Why would I be receiving a call from this organization? Then we'll go into the second sign. So scammers, after they're using an organization's name, scammers might say there's a problem or a prize, right? So there's several scenarios that they might use to entice you. I'll name a few here. Again, using the government as an easy target. They might say that you're in trouble with the government by saying that you owe taxes. You owe money to whatever organization or company they're representing themselves as. You have a problem with one of your accounts, and that you need to verify some information, which, in today's world, it could be a social media account, an online retail account, or an account that you might regularly make payments to. They might say there's a virus on your computer, or someone is hurt that is in your family had an emergency, or a grandchild is in jail, or someone is, hurt. They're using all of these things to try and get you to react quickly. All of these problems, right, they could be legitimate issues in real life, but you have to stop and think and ask yourself, does this make sense? The other thing scammers might say is there's a prize, right? Who doesn't want a prize? But again, if it's too good to be true, or if it just doesn't make sense, You know, they might say that you won money in a lottery or sweepstakes, or you have money coming to you from an inheritance. Usually, whatever they're saying the prize is, you have to pay a fee to get it, which again doesn't make sense. So really the point of this scam sign is to make it seem like they're helping you with your problem or give you something that you've earned. So now off of the first sign and the second sign, now they're hoping that they've gained your trust, right? And helping you fix your problem or finding a solution for you, which leads us into the next two signs. So the third sign that it's a scam, they pressure you to act immediately. So the point of this is scammers want you to act before you have time to think. You know, they create that urgency to get you to react quickly and give away your personal or financial information when you probably wouldn't have otherwise. So there are several tactics, of course, that scammers use to get you to act immediately. And I'll name a few. If you're on the phone, they might tell you not to hang up. You know, they don't want you talking to somebody else about the situation who may talk you out of it. Or they don't want you to Google them and check out their story and see, oh, this is a scam. If you receive an email or text, they use specific keywords that get people to act quickly, such as, you know, immediately, urgent, or important. Scammers might include a link to click on in a message, causing you to be intrigued by what the link is or where it takes you, right? I think we've all been in that situation where, like, well, you just want to click on it to see what it is. Our interest is piqued. They might say your computer is about to be corrupted. And lastly, scammers may give you a deadline and threaten you with an or else statement to say, you know, do this or else. You know, I think it's just human nature that you never want to be pressured. You never want to feel in that uncomfortable situation. And scammers can get pretty harsh and take drastic measures. So just, again, being aware of these things, you know, they may threaten to arrest you. They may threaten to sue you or even threaten to take away your driver's license or business license. You know, and although they say these things, they aren't really going to do them. They're just trying to intimidate you and appear convincing if you don't do what they ask. So ultimately, the point of this scam sign is to create urgency, to get you to act quickly without thinking it through, to give them what they want, right, which is money, which leads us into the last scam sign. So they want you to pay in a specific way. The one thing scammers are good at is finding ways for you to pay them, right? That's the whole point of them scamming you in the first place, is to try and get money from you. So scammers try and hide behind the money, so they use various ways to get people to pay them. And why they do that is they try and make it harder for law enforcement to track, you know, to try and hide behind all of those different circles of money. But although if you're willing to share your credit card or account information, and give them payment that way, of course, they're not going to be opposed to that. They're going to take whatever way is the easiest way to get them the money the fastest. So I'll go through some ways that they may ask you to pay them. So sending money through a money transfer company. This is usually when you take cash, you purchase a check or wire funds to the person the scammer is telling you to send funds to. You can do this through, you know, major retailers or gas stations, and sometimes there are even stores for this specific purpose. But although, you know, not all of these transactions are fraudulent, there are still good ways that you can do that. Putting money on a gift card and then giving the scammers the number on the back of the card is a red flag. Some scammers will send you a check, tell you to deposit it, and then send them money back. Right? Why would someone send you money to just have, you know, send them money back? Then you'll find out a few days later the check is returned and now you're out the money and have to pay the debt. And another way scammers may ask you to send them money is via a cash app or virtual currency, which is all online. And even if you don't have specific accounts set up for this, of course, they are always willing to help you get set up with an account to make it easier for you to send them money. Again, these are all tactics to make it harder for law enforcement to trace where the funds are actually going. And again, the point of this scam sign is very obvious, right? Getting you to pay them. So those are the 4 signs that it's a scam. I know it's a lot of information, but as we kind of continue to go through the rest of the presentation, I want you to keep these things in the back of your mind to see if you can recognize the red flags as we go through some scenarios. And I want to take the time here to take a break to see if there are any questions or comments before we get into the next section.
I was just giving it a second, but nobody's asked any so far. You're doing a great job of explaining everything.
Okay, well, good. Yep, please feel free. Don't be shy. So now we'll review the different types of scams or schemes that scammers use, right? And unfortunately, there are so many that they actually have names. So we have, grandchild scam, vehicle or large item sale, charity scam, online dating, lottery, refund scam, work from home opportunities, U1, government scams, which could be, various government organizations, like I mentioned earlier. And I'll say that this is not an all-encompassing list. There are more, and scammers are always looking for new ways and schemes to take advantage of people, even using current events to prey on, your vulnerability, right? For example, right, the last over a year and a half of COVID-19, you can see on the slide here, there's at least these 5 different things that scams that they've created to prey on people's vulnerability in the uncertain times, right? So unemployment fraud, SBA loan fraud, stimulus fraud, work from home opportunities, vaccine fraud, all of these things, and that they just create to prey on, uncertain times. And even with the recent Hurricane Ida, you got to watch for those types of scams coming, and they might prey on you to try and donate to a charity to help Hurricane Ida. As much as everyone wants to help other people in those situations, scammers are trying to take advantage of people. So, these are just some of the many ways that scammers just continue to create new ways to take advantage. So we'll go through a couple examples of the more popular scams and go into more details about how the scam works and the red flags to watch for. So the first one we'll go through here is the grandchild scam. So, and I'll have you read along if you want to read along with me. I'll kind of read through the scenario and then we'll talk about the red flags here. So the scenario is, right, you receive a phone call from someone posing as a family member, a hospital employee, or police officer. They explain that a loved one has been hurt in an accident or arrested and they need your help. The caller says it's urgent and tells you to keep it a secret. So, right, you ask yourself, is the caller who you think it is? Remember, scammers are always good at pretending to be someone they're not. They can be convincing, right? Sometimes using information, they can get information from social networking sites or hacking into your loved one's email account and make it seem more real and legitimate. And they'll pressure you to send money before you have time to think. So let's talk about the red flags, right, that you should be asking yourself. Why would someone you don't know be telling you about your grandchild? Why wouldn't a loved one be calling you to let you know about the situation? Is this really a loved one calling you? Why would they need your help, right? Why wouldn't they call a parent or perhaps someone closer to the grandchild to help them? Specifically, the caller says it's urgent. Usually in urgent situations, you don't have to say it's urgent. You can just figure that out by listening to what the caller is telling you. Why would you need to keep it a secret? If your grandchild is hurt or in trouble, you would want to make sure anyone that is close to your grandchild is aware of the situation. So, right, I think as a family, you want to help whatever that situation is to get them out of trouble or to take care of them. So after you kind of ask these questions of yourself, you just have to stop, make sure you check it out, look up your grandchild's phone number yourself, or call another family member to see if it really is true. Let's go through a real life scenario here. And again, please feel free to read along. That's kind of why I put it up here. I know it gets to be a bit lengthy, but it gets the point across here. So a victim had been contacted by I'll say, quote unquote, the police, letting her know that her grandson was involved in a really bad car accident in which he was the guilty party. They told her that there was a gag order and she could not discuss the case with anyone since it was still ongoing. They told her $15,000 was needed and to get a big manila envelope. At 10:06 a.m., the victim withdrew $15,000 cash. The victim was told that an Uber driver would be sent to collect the envelope and make sure that the cash was spread out in the envelope so the Uber driver, right, wouldn't know it was cash and steal it. The Uber driver collected the envelope from the victim and brought it to a Super 8 motel in Green Bay. A little while later, the same officer called back and told the victim they needed another $10,000 because there were more charges added. At 12:08 p.m., the victim withdrew $10,000 cash. This time, she did not have the bigger envelope, so the Uber driver took a letter envelope from the victim and started driving. When the Uber driver realized that it was cash, he became uncomfortable and pulled over and called the local police department. The police instructed the driver to get off the highway and meet them. This Uber driver was also supposed to go to the Green Bay to the same Super 8 motel, and whoever ordered the Uber driver saw the driver get off the highway and then promptly canceled the Uber. The second Uber driver explained to the police what he was supposed to do and how he picked up the envelope full of cash from an elderly woman and felt it was wrong. The police department was able to return the $10,000 to the victim and open cases for each incident. The cases are currently being investigated, right? You can see how quickly things can go wrong, right? If the Uber driver wouldn't have recognized that the envelope was cash, the victim could have been out $10,000 more, and who knows what else the scammers would have gotten from her. I mean, that's kind of how scary scenarios can really get. Before I go on to the next scenario, are there any questions about the Grandchild scam or any of the other scams that I kind of touched on?
There's nothing in the chat, but please don't be shy, everybody, and type up if you have any questions.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll go through then the next scenario is vehicle large item scam. So here's the scenario. You place an ad for an item for sale online. A buyer emerges and sends you a cashier's check that is over the sale amount. The buyer apologizes for the mistake and states that he trusts you and asks that you send the overage amount back to him when you ship the item. The check ends up being returned and you are without the item or responsible for the check amount. So first I'm going to say, right, please be careful when posting items for sale online. I would always try to sell to someone local so you can meet them in a public place and get paid cash. That way you don't have to worry about any check clearing, whether it's a personal check or even a cashier's check or money order. It's just a safer way to do it, and you don't have the hassle. So anyway, we'll review the red flags now that you should be asking yourself, right, for the overpayment. Why would someone be sending you more money than what they're paying for the item, right? That doesn't happen. People don't mistakenly do that. You know, it's the check from the person who is purchasing the item. So perhaps, you know, verify who the person is that you're actually talking to versus who the check is, you know, on the check, who it's from, who the remitter is. Sometimes the buyer might ask you to purchase gift cards and give them the number off the back of the cards for the overpayment discrepancy, right? Red flags, red flags, red flags. All of those things just don't add up. If someone is purchasing something from you, they're going to give you what you've got, you know, what you have settled upon as far as the amount of the sale. You know, if you notice any of these red flags or anything else that just seems off, don't send the item before you know the check is good. You don't have to sell the item to that buyer. Wait for the next honest buyer to contact you. It's not worth the headache for you in the long run or the loss to you. So let's go through a real life example here. So the victim was trying to sell a $15,000 vehicle online, and she was contacted by two men who said they were brothers and they wanted to purchase the vehicle. The brothers initially wanted to conduct a Venmo transaction, which is an online cash app, but the victim said that the payment had to be cash, cashier's check, or money order. As a result, the brothers sent the victim a $22,945.50 cashier's check that appeared to be from a business in California, which was to cover the cost of the vehicle, shipping charges, and a little extra for the victim. After the victim deposited the check, the men contacted her and tried to pressure her into releasing the car to them prior to the check clearing. The victim did not do this. A few days later, the check was returned. The victim contacted the buyers to tell them that the check had been returned. The buyers did not have anything to say about that. The victim never heard from them again. Unfortunately, the victim was smart, and she still had a vehicle, title, and license plate, and she did not send anything to the potential buyers until that check was cleared. So, yay, that was a win, right? So, again, here's an innocent act that the victim was attempting to sell her car, and scammers preying on her using a fraudulent check to get a car. Again, fortunately, she waited to send the vehicle until the check cleared, and it was, a good thing she did, made the decision she did. Any questions on the vehicle sale or scam?
Doesn't look like it. You must be just doing a great job explaining.
Please don't be shy or don't hesitate. Please feel free to even add comments or any questions. We're here to help answer anything that you have questions to. So our final scam example is a romance scam. And right, I think we all know dating isn't like it used to be, finding a neighbor or friend who knows somebody. Everything seems to be online, right? With countless dating apps or some form of social media. All of those online places make it more difficult to know who the true person is on the other end. And here, so I'll give you a scenario, right, of kind of how it works. You meet someone special on a dating website. Soon he wants to move it off the dating site to email or phone calls. He tells you he loves you, but he lives far away, maybe for business or because he's in the military. He needs you to send him money because he can't access his bank accounts. So let's review the red flags you might want to ask yourself. How long have I known this person, right? If he's already asking for help, sending him money. Have I ever met them in person? Would I add this person to my account now? Would I add them straight to my account? Why is this person far away? How did they get to where they're located if they can't access their accounts, if they don't have finances to do what they're doing? So these are all good questions that you should be asking yourself. And there could be more. I think every romance scam is kind of the same, but every situation might be a little different. And I will just say, romance scams are probably one of the top scams that consumers fall for, right? And I'll tell you why. And I think if you think about it a little bit, you'll realize, similar to the Grandchild scam, scammers are not only going through all of those check boxes of 1, 2, 3, 4, they're also pulling on your heartstrings in the meantime. They're trying to, gain your trust and love by using just the right words and interacting with you, taking advantage of your vulnerable state. When they do this, like with anyone in any type of loving relationship, you want to do things for that other person and help them. That's what relationships are built on. So now that they've built this trust, this relationship with you and this trust, they want to use you to send them money, which is sad. We'll go through a real life example here.
Hey, Heidi.
Go.
We have a question.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Deb would like to know what happens if we don't give the bad guys the money they're asking for, and how does she get them to stop contacting her?
Yeah, so good question. If you don't, you can I would just cut ties right away with that person, however you're corresponding with them. And we'll go through actually in a little bit of blocking them from your phone if you're texting them or they're calling you. I would try and block their phone number so they don't attempt to contact you anymore. I would certainly, if you feel threatened in any way, we never hesitate to tell our members, please go to the police department. They're there to help you and protect you. It just gives you that reassurance that, okay, yep, I told them, and if there's anything that they can do to help with that situation. And then if you feel like you want to come to your financial, if you feel like you've given information away or your accounts could potentially be compromised or anything like that, please come to Fox and tell us your story. We can help walk you through, you know, the scenario and help how we, you know, we can help you, you know, work through that situation. Hopefully that answers your question.
Also, Jamie says you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it. So we'll move on to the online dating or romance scam example here. The victim had an online relationship with a girlfriend that was from Ohio for about a year. After a while, the victim kept receiving contact from her, but it was always about money. He purchased gift cards for her. The victim received multiple unemployment benefit deposits in his account from New York State unemployment that were supposedly for his girlfriend, but the deposits weren't in her name. Every time the victim suspected it was fraud, his girlfriend would entice him with intimate photos or photos of a stock he had won, but of course had to pay taxes or fees up front before claiming the vehicle. At one point, the victim told the girlfriend that he would only send money through Western Union and wasn't going to buy her gift cards anymore, but she got very upset and insisted it had to be gift cards. She would convince him to send her money by threatening him by stating that her mom was an FBI agent. She told him her mom's name and badge number and sent a photo of the badge and ID card to instill fear in him so he would continue sending her money. The victim in this case reportedly sent over $3,000 to his quote-unquote girlfriend. So again, you can see how things just escalated and draw out due to enticements or threats being made. So those are the types of scam or the red flags that you need to be looking for if you get yourself in that situation. I'll open up for more questions. Please feel free to ask any questions.
It doesn't look like there's any more right now.
Okay. Well, we will get into what is a money mule, right? Oh, let me change my screen here. So what is a money mule? A money mule is someone who transfers or moves illegally acquired money on behalf of someone else. So I'll kind of explain, right? Why do criminals recruit money mules? They need mules to help launder proceeds derived from online scams and fraud, like we were just talking about, and crimes, which could be, you know, drug trafficking or human trafficking. And like we talked about before, they want to add layers of distance between them and the crime victims to make it harder for law enforcement to accurately trace money trails. So the reason I talk about this is sometimes you don't even know that you are a money mule. So I have a graph here to show you kind of how it works. You have Fraudster Fred, right, the scammer who's talking with the four mules, Mule Molly, Sandy, Joe, and Hank. And although I have four listed here, these scammers and fraudsters can have 20, 30, as many as they can manage at one time, enticing them, you know, baiting them with different scenarios. You know, one could be talking about a romance scam, or one of them could be, you know, the large vehicle sale, whatever it may be. And it's not always a male, female, a person who could be impersonating the opposite sex. So although you maybe think that you're talking to a male who's your boyfriend, is maybe really a female who's using you as a mule. So I'm going to give you go through a couple scenarios here. And like I say, please feel free to read along with the scenario with me, because it can get a little much when you have a lot of mules going on at one time, but I feel like it helps kind of give you perspective of how money mules work. So the first scenario we have is Mule Molly gives away online banking login information thinking she's receiving a deposit. Fraudster Fred takes over her online banking and sends bill pay checks from Mule Molly's bill pay account to Mule Joe, Sandy, and Hank before Molly realizes what's happening. So Mule Joe, Sandy, and Hank received the bill pay checks via email or sent directly to their financial. So Fraudster Fred tells each of them to deposit the funds, keep some for themselves, then take the rest of the funds, buy gift cards, and give the card number to Fraudster Fred, right, who's benefiting from all of this. Several days later now, the checks from Mule Molly are returned, probably NSF or account closed, leaving all of the other mules, Joe, Sandy, and Hank, with negative accounts and empty gift cards. So again, you can see how quickly things can move and how so many people are involved and can be involved and how it affects so many people. So what you might be doing may affect other people as well. And it's just more questions to ask yourself when you're being asked to send money to somebody. So we'll go through the second scenario here. So the second one goes like this. Mule Sandy thinks she's in love with someone she met online, her fiance, AKA Fraudster Fred, tells her he's from the States but is in the military overseas and can't access his accounts. Fraudster Fred tells Mule Sandy that he opened an account in her name at First Bank so he can send her money to pay his bills for him. Mule Sandy writes checks payable to herself drawn off First Bank, deposits them into her Fox account, then withdraws cashier's checks payable to Mule, Molly, Joe, and Hank. Fox receives notice that the check deposits are being returned. Usually account closed or unable to locate account, causing the checks Mule Sandy sent to be returned, leaving Mule Sandy, Joe, Molly, and Hank with negative accounts. So, right, does this scenario sound familiar? We just talked a little bit ago about a romance scam where the scammers say he can't access his account, but for some reason he was able to open an account at a different financial and have, Mule Sandy on the account and just says, here, take money from this account. So, these are very real examples that consumers continue to fall for. And really, can we ask ourselves, did Fraudster Fred really open an account in Mule Sandy's name? Probably not. Fraudster Fred probably just used another Mule's account and routing number to create checks, sent them to Mule Sandy for her to use to commit fraud. Are there any questions on what a money mule is or the scenarios that I went through? Like I said, I know it's a lot of information and there's a lot of different moving parts with money mules, but that's how scammers use them to build all those relationships and to use all of these mules kind of working for the scammer to eventually get the money to the scammer.
Jamie would like to know how long it usually takes for the checks to be returned as bad checks.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say now in today's world, it is faster than it used to be. It can be as little as 2 days, but typically it could potentially be, I would say 5 to 7 days. It could be longer, but that's probably the most normal time is 5 to 7 days. That's why, if someone will come into our branch and they have a check and there might be, the red flags that just doesn't add up. If there are red flags that just don't add up, that's when we want to put holds on those checks so that the member doesn't take the money, because then if that check is returned, the member then is responsible for paying that loss. And, we want to do everything that we can to protect that member from taking a loss and having to repay that back. So that's kind of, slide skipped here. That's kind of the thought process on that and how long check holds are. Lastly, I will go through, right?
We have one more question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is there a way to determine if a cashier's check or certified check is valid before it clears? And are there legit escrow services for large scale purchases like a car where one party sends cash and the other sends the title?
So to answer the first question, again, there are red flags and there are things to look at on a check to determine if it's fraudulent. And, hopefully the frontline staff will be able to recognize and identify what those red flags are. No, it's not 100% accurate that we're going to be able to identify, but hopefully they would be asking those questions of the member to determine, does this sound legitimate or does this sound like a scam? And I guess really probably the best way to handle that would be then to accept that check if there is any doubt, and then put a hold on it. And then if, give it time, and if the check isn't returned, then we assume that it's legitimate. And then the second question was regarding like the sale of items. Is that correct? And
Yeah,
is there
they're
a better
wanting
way
to know if there's any kind of service that can protect them for large sale purchases, like a car where someone would send cash and then the other person would send a title.
I know that gets to be hard these days because so much is sold online, and a lot of times, a lot of people are out of state when you're trying to sell to those different individuals. I would say my personal opinion was maybe you can meet at the financial where the money's coming from, and then the financial could give someone like, if there's a lien on it, right? If they could give them like a lien release to say that the title is being handed over. Otherwise, I would assume you're meeting in person to pick up the vehicle. So then you would give cash, and then you would do the exchange of the title at that time and see that it's a free and clear title. I would always prefer cash probably over a check if you don't know the person, or if there are red flags that are alerting you to potentially being a suspicious transaction. But I think by the time that you get to the point of, meeting that person to maybe pick up the vehicle, I think that it's pretty safe to say that it's probably a pretty legitimate transaction, because I don't know that a scammer would go to that extreme to then show the car or have the car, but I could be wrong.
Thanks, Heidi. That's a great answer.
Yeah. Any further questions or comments?
Nope, nothing for now.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Then lastly, I will then review, right, like we've gone through all the different scenarios, talked about the channels that fraud can be ran through, the different schemes, how Money Mule works, and now really what do we want to get to? How do we avoid a scam at all costs? We don't even want to go down that road. So there are several things you can do to protect yourself from falling for a scam. Kind of like I was with that question before, the first thing you want to block unwanted calls and text messages. Take steps to block unwanted calls and to filter unwanted text messages. If you don't recognize the number, have it go to voicemail. If it's a legitimate call, they'll leave a voicemail. Don't give your personal or financial information in response to a request that you didn't expect, right? Legitimate organizations won't call, email, or text to ask for your personal information, like your social security number, financial account or credit card numbers. If you get an email or text message from a company you do business with and you think it's real, it's still best not to click on any links. Instead, contact them using a website you know is trustworthy, or look up their phone number. Don't call a number they gave you or the number from your caller ID. Resist the pressure to act immediately. Legitimate businesses will give you time to make a decision. Anyone who pressures you to pay or give them your personal information is probably something you don't want to work with anyway. And again, if it's something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Know how scammers tell you to pay. As I touched on earlier, never pay someone who insists you pay with a gift card or by using a money transfer service. Never deposit a check and send money back to someone. That doesn't make sense. And finally, stop and talk to someone you trust before you do anything else. Tell someone, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, or even us as your financial. We're here to help you. Talking about it could help you realize it's a scam and could protect yourself. And again, I know this is a lot of information to go through, but please, feel free to ask any questions on anything else or how to avoid a scam. And I'll say if there's Any other questions that we talked about today too?
Somebody would like to know, Jocelyn would like to know, how, do mules get into legal trouble, or would just fraudster Fred get in trouble?
So that's a good question. They can, and if you are like complicit in just continuing with fraud, because you might think that it really is, you're really in a romantic relationship, or you don't care that you're sending money, that you can also be complicit or wittingly involved in the scam or the fraud, and you could potentially have you know, prosecutions against you right along with a scammer. So I would always, if your financial tells you that it's a scam, or if you really recognize that it's a scam, you should really just stop the activity. That's just the best thing to do.
Deb would like to know, will a bad guy tell us what we should be saying to our banks and family members to avoid detection, and should that be a red flag?
Yes, good. That is a good question. So a lot of times these scammers will coach you to tell you what to say, because they already know what financials are. They already know what our rebuttals are going to be, and when they don't like when we ask questions to the member, because they know that we are trying to protect our member and trying to stop this activity from happening. So they will try as much as they can to coach you on what to say. And they're going to give you scenarios, you know, and things to say that doesn't sound as suspicious or doesn't sound as much like a red flag as it could if the member was just being truthful about the incident. Like if someone came in, let's say in that elder abuse situation or the grandchild scam, if she's withdrawing that money, that's $15,000, and you know, we might ask her, well, you know, what are you using this for? If it's unusual from her normal activity, and she says, oh, I'm getting construction done on my house and I'm paying my contractors. Well, okay, if she tells us that information, we're probably not going to ask her that many more questions, because that is a legitimate thing that could be happening in her life. She could be redoing her house, especially right now with everything that's going on. She could be paying contractors and she could be paying them with cash. And this scammer could have coached her to say those things instead of saying, well, yeah, I'm sending it. Someone said my grandchild, and it's the embarrassment too, right? So if she got a call that her grandchild is, you know, could be getting charges against him for the guilty party of a car accident, it's the embarrassment of telling the real truth of why the member is being scammed or because of something that she's not proud of. So they will definitely coach you, and those are also things to watch for. So good question. I appreciate that.
Those are all the questions we have right now, unless anyone has anything else.
Okay. Well, I will say too, give you another opportunity. Please know if you feel or know that you've been scammed or something doesn't feel right, please reach out to us right away to tell us what happened. You know, what information may be compromised, you know, your account number, your card information, your social, whatever it is. Like I said, it might be a little embarrassing, but please be honest. You know, we're not here to judge. That's not what we do. We are on your side to help protect you, you know, your identity, your assets. You know, we will help walk you through the necessary steps in order to protect you. And, you know, that's what we're here for. So please feel free to come to us if you feel like you've been in that situation. And I will say, you know, if there aren't any further questions, I want to thank everyone for attending today's presentation. Excuse me. We hope you enjoyed it and learned more about how to protect yourself and, you know, the various red flags to look for. And if you found today's information helpful, I do want to share a few other education opportunities. First, you can find a fraud tip in our monthly newsletter. Just look for the yellow, the bullet point there, the fraud focus target and arrow. And then on the second, as you know, Amy mentioned, the second Monday of the month from 4 to 5 p.m., we're part of the WHBOI's Focus Fox Valley radio show called Bring It To You Straight, going through the various financial topics each month. And our fraud segment is the final segment of the show, so please feel free to tune in there and As always, if you have any further questions or if you think of them after, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone again for being here today and give Heidi a huge thank you for being here and sharing all of her expertise with us. It's always fascinating listening to you talk, Heidi. And we'll be sending out the link to the recording of this webinar within the next day or two here. We're so excited to be able to share the solid financial information with all of you. And we sure hope to see you again next month when we bring your lunch money to you. Please have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.